anymore. All right, let's get it. Let's react. Let's get it. Why humans never eat predator meat? Cause I look key
Imagine you are
wonder.
standing in front of a grill. You have a fresh cut of meat right in front of you. It looks perfect. It smells incredible. You've done this 1,000 times. You cook it, you sit down, you eat. Now here is a question that will feel weirdly simple at first. Why was that meat from a cow? And not from a lion, not from a wolf,
Right.
not from a tiger, not from a shark?
Right.
We hunt animals, we eat animals. We have always done this. But something stops us. Something specific. Something we never really questioned. And the answer is not what you think. Most people assume it is just a cultural thing. A taboo. We don't do that. But that is only the surface. Underneath, there is a biological reason. A chemical reason. And a reason buried so deep in your evolutionary memory that your body already knew the answer before science confirmed it. Stay with this all the way to the end, because the last part is not really about predators at all. It is about you. And what you are made of. Let us start with the most obvious question. Could you even eat a lion if you wanted to? The answer is yes. Technically, the meat is not poisonous in the way that a mushroom might be. You would not drop dead from a single bite. Some people have eaten lion. Some indigenous hunters in history have eaten wolf. There are accounts of people cooking bear, alligator, shark, so the meat exists, the option exists, but there is a reason that almost no culture on Earth built a tradition around eating predators, and that reason is one of the most elegant laws in all of nature. It is called the 10% rule. Here is what it means. Every time energy moves up the food chain, 90% of it disappears. A blade of grass holds energy from the sun, a deer eats the grass, but the deer only keeps about 10% of that energy. The rest is burned, lost as heat, used to keep the deer moving and breathing. Now a lion eats the deer. Same thing happens. The lion only keeps 10% of the deer's energy. So by the time you are sitting at the top of the food chain, you are feeding on the leftovers of leftovers. Think about what that means in practice. A lion needs to eat around 15 to 20 pounds of meat just to survive a single day. That is an enormous cost, an enormous amount of prey. Burned down to just enough to keep one lion alive. Now imagine you are a prehistoric human. You are hungry. You have a choice. Do you risk your life fighting a lion for 15 pounds of low-energy meat? Or do you hunt the deer, which costs you far less danger and gives you far more bang for your calorie? The math was obvious. The answer was always obvious. You go for the prey, not the predator. But here is where it gets stranger, because the energy problem is only part of the story. The other part is invisible, and it is sitting inside every apex predator alive today. It is called biomagnification. Here is how it works. Toxins enter the food chain at the bottom, pollutants in water, heavy metals in soil, chemicals absorbed by plants and tiny creatures. A small fish eats thousands of tiny organisms. It absorbs a small dose of toxin each time, not enough to kill it, but it builds up. A bigger fish eats thousands of small fish. Now the toxin is concentrated, higher dose. Still survivable. Then a predator fish eats thousands of medium fish. The toxin concentrates again. By the time you reach the top, the concentration is not just slightly higher. It can be millions of times higher than it was at the bottom. This is not a theory. This is measurable. This is documented. In 1966, a scientist named Charles Worster studied eagles dying along the Great Lakes. The eagles were not being poisoned directly. They were eating fish. But those fish had absorbed DDT, a chemical pesticide, through the whole chain below them. The DDT had concentrated so much by the top that the eagles' eggs were cracking before they could hatch. The eagles were dying not from what they ate, but from everything their food had eaten before them. This is what sits inside every predator. Mercury, lead, PCBs. Synthetic chemicals that the body cannot break down. They accumulate in fat tissue. They build up over a lifetime. You have already felt the edge of this yourself. You have been told to eat tuna carefully, not because tuna is dangerous, but because tuna is a large predatory fish, and large predatory fish sit high enough on the chain that their mercury levels are measurable, significant, worth monitoring. Now imagine eating a creature that sat even higher. A land apex predator, a bear, a wolf, an orca. The load inside those animals is not just higher, it is often extraordinary. And that is before we even get to the parasites, because predators carry something else inside them, something your immune system would not enjoy at all. Predators eat raw flesh. Frequently. Their digestive systems and muscle tissue host parasites that have evolved alongside that lifestyle for millions of years. The most famous is a tiny organism called trichinella. It lives in the muscle tissue of carnivores. When a human eats infected meat without cooking it to the right temperature, the larvae hatch inside the intestine. They migrate into your muscles. Your body swells. Your fever climbs. The pain is severe. Historical cases were often fatal. Bear meat is one of the most documented sources of trichinella in the world, and bears are the one large predator that humans have occasionally eaten throughout history. Every culture that ate bear knew you had to cook it thoroughly, not because it tasted better, because if you didn't, the consequences were brutal. Now think about a true apex predator, an animal that has spent decades accumulating parasites, toxins, and biological baggage from everything it ever consumed. Your body is not equipped for that. It was never meant to be, but here is the part that makes this even more fascinating. Because there is a force even older than the chemistry, something that evolved inside you long before you understood any of this. It is disgust. Researchers studying human food psychology have found something remarkable. Humans have an instinctive aversion to the idea of eating carnivores. It is not just cultural. It appears in children before they have been taught it. It appears across cultures with no contact with each other. Paul Rosen, a psychologist at the University of Pennsylvania, spent decades studying the disgust response. He found that humans categorize meat from carnivores as deeply aversive at an almost pre-rational level. The explanation is evolutionary. Your ancient ancestors who felt nothing about eating a predator sometimes died. From toxins, from parasites, from the chemical load carried inside apex carnivores. But the ancestors who felt a gut-level resistance, who found the idea unappetizing without knowing why, those ancestors lived, they survived. They passed that feeling down. You inherited it. Right now, if I asked you to imagine eating a juicy wolf steak, something in you would react before your brain finished the thought. That is not culture. That is millions of years of your ancestors surviving exactly the situations that killed the others. Your disgust is your ancestral memory speaking. But now, here's the twist. Because not every predator is off limits, and the exceptions reveal something important. Humans do eat predatory fish with caution. We eat alligator. We eat bear. We eat shark in some cultures. We eat squid and octopus, which are ferocious hunters of the sea. What these have in common is that they sit just low enough on the chain or are consumed just rarely enough that the load stays manageable. The rule is not that you can never eat a predator. The rule is that the higher you go, the more dangerous the accumulation becomes. And the animals at the very top, the lions, the wolves, the orcas, the tigers, they have spent entire lifetimes concentrating what the whole world below them contained. They are not just animals. They are living archives of everything the food chain has touched, and eating them would mean consuming all of that, compressed, stored, waiting. Your body knew this. Your ancestors learned it the hard way so you wouldn't have to. Now here is the part that will change how you look at your next meal. Every animal you have ever eaten, the chicken, the beef, the fish, every single one of them sat low enough on the chain that the chemical load was survivable, low enough that the parasite risk was manageable, low enough that your ancient disgust response didn't fire. The food you eat every single day is the result of millions of years of selection pressure. You didn't choose it randomly. Your entire culinary tradition was shaped by survival logic so old it predates language. The cow on your plate is not just food. It is the result of a biological calculation your ancestors ran for generations without ever writing it down. And the animals at the top of the chain, the ones you would never consider eating, they are there because that is where danger lives, at every level, in every form. Predators are not just dangerous to hunt, they are dangerous to consume. The whole system was built to keep you away from them. And somehow, without chemistry textbooks, without microscopes, without knowing what a toxin was or what a parasite did, your ancestors already knew. They passed the knowledge down the only way evolution allows. They made it feel wrong. And you are here today because it worked.